well, and also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our grade 2 English lesson on contractions. And before we start with our lesson on contractions, we're going to log into aplusstudents.ca. Once we have logged into aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of language arts, grade 2, and then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of contractions. And we did contractions in our previous lesson. So today it's basically just going to be a continuation of what we did in our previous lesson. Right? All right. So our chapter is contractions. Our subject is English language arts, grade 2. And the lessons that we're going to be focusing on under the chapter of contractions is to use contractions in a sentence, and it's also to use pronoun verb contractions, and lastly, we're going to use contractions with not. And a contraction or contractions, a contraction is a shortened form of two words, right? So you have like two words, and it is a shortened form, meaning that we put those two words together and then it's as if we are creating one word, right? However, there are certain words that we need to leave out, and whenever we leave out those words, and then we need to put an apostrophe in its place. So an apostrophe, which is that little sign over there, it shows where one or even more than one letter is left out. And remember, even if you leave out one letter or you leave out two letters or three letters, right, you only put one apostrophe in the place where a letter is being left out, right? So if you, for example, leave two letters out, you don't put two apostrophes next to each other. So we always just add one apostrophe, whether we remove one letter or remove more than one letter. Or let's say we leave out one letter or more than one letter. And a contraction can be formed from a pronoun as well as a verb. And if we make an example, right? Then if we look at the word I am, the words I am, right? It's like saying I am going to the shop. So let me just write that sentence. We say I am, or let's say I am walking to the shop, right? If we want to shorten these two words, which is I am, if we want to shorten these two words, I am, then it means that, remember we said a contraction is formed from a pronoun and a verb, right? So the pronoun is I and the verb is am. So we're going to leave the I, which is the pronoun, right? We're going to leave it the same. And then we're going to leave out the word a. And when we leave out the word a, we're going to put an apostrophe in its place. And then we bring down the letter M. So now we have shortened that word I am to I'm. And that is why we say a contraction is a shortened form of two words. There we have the two words, which is I am. And we've shortened that two words, right, to I'm. And we left out the A. And since we left out the A, we put an apostrophe in its place. So now instead of saying I am walking to the shop, we can say I'm walking to the shop. So there we have our contraction, which is I'm. So like I said, instead of saying I am walking to the shop, we've shortened that words and we say it's I'm walking to the shop. And once again, any letter that you either remove or you leave out, you put an apostrophe in its place, like here. For I'm, an apostrophe M. And once again, if you leave out more than one letter, you don't put more than one apostrophe. You still just put one apostrophe, even if you leave out two or more letters. All right. Now, if we look at our next word, right, which is you will. So if we look at the next word, which is you will, so our two words, or let's say our pronoun and our verb, so this is our pronoun you, our verb is will. So let's think of a sentence with you will. Let's say you will be rewarded. So you will be rewarded, right? So now we need to shorten these two words, which is the pronoun as well as the verb, which is you will. And remember I said that our pronoun we stay the same, right? We leave it stays the same. So you we will bring down again because it stays the same, the pronoun. Now we go on to our verb, which is will, right? And in order to get the shortened form of you will, which is you'll, we're going to leave out the W as well as the I. And then we're going to put an apostrophe in its place. And then we bring our double L down. So only the L's of the verb we are bringing down. Right? And as you can see, let me show, I removed the W as well as the I, but I only put one apostrophe in its place. I did not put more than one apostrophe, right? Which means that, like I said, if you even leave out more than one letter right before creating our contraction, then you only need to put one apostrophe. We don't put more than one apostrophe because we left out more than one letter. So now we say you'll be rewarded. So instead of saying you will be rewarded, we can shorten that two words, the pronoun as well as the verb, and we just say you'll be rewarded. Right? And here we have our contraction, you. All right. And now a contraction, it can also be formed from a verb, and it can also be formed from a word not. So a contraction can be formed from a verb, and a contraction can be formed with the word not. And usually, if we use the word not, then it means that it's like having negative contractions, right? It's like saying isn't, don't for do not, is not for isn't, right? It's basically negative contraction. And in most contractions, right, with not, the spelling of the verb, it does not change. So the spelling of the verb stays the same, and then the apostrophe takes the place of the O. Because if we remove the O from not, and then we put the apostrophe in its place. So remember, we're going to remove the O in not. And if we look at an example, right? is, which is our verb, and not, right? We need to basically shorten that two words to form one word. So we need to shorten that two words so that it become one. And we said the verb does not change, so we bring the verb down, which is. And we said that we will only remove the O, right? And we put the apostrophe in its place, which means that is, we're going to bring the N down, we remove the O, we put the apostrophe in its place, and then we bring down the T. So is not stands for isn't. So we have isn't. This isn't what I ordered, right? Isn't. Or we can say this is not what I ordered. But instead of still going through the whole effort of saying is not, we can just say this isn't my order. All right. The same with the word were not. Let me use a different color. So the same with the word were not. So were not, it comes from the word, we have the word were, which is the verb, and then we have the word not. So we need to bring these two together. And if we use the word were not and we shorten these two words, we bring down the were. We still bring down the not, but the only thing we're going to leave out is the O. So we bring down the N. We leave out the O, so we put the apostrophe in its place. And the T we bring down. So were not, or we say wouldn't. Right? So here we have our contraction, which is weren't. It's like saying you weren't supposed to be here, or you weren't supposed to be in school today, or you weren't supposed to do that assignment. Right? And we have were not, so now we have wouldn't. All right. So now we are also doing our tutorial lesson on A plus students.ca. Right. So now we're going to A plus students.ca, and we are going to use contractions within a sentence. So in our previous lesson, we had to form pronoun verb contractions, and we also had to form contractions with the word not. But today we're going to use contractions in a sentence. And we see the contraction is a shortened form of two words. We have two words and we shorten that two words into one word. And then an apostrophe, it shows where either one or more letters are left out. And we say that we can use a contraction that is formed either with a pronoun as well as a verb. And then we have an example, which is I am or you will. And another way is a contraction can also be formed from a verb and the word not. So we see the contraction can also be formed from a verb as well as the word not. So we see that a contraction can also be formed from a verb as well as the word not. And in most contractions with the word not, the spelling of the verb does not change. So we can say then a verb as well as not. And here we have our words, which is, for example, our verbs, and then we have our nots. All right. So we basically say that we are leaving the verb, right? We just bring it down and we can either, example, use it in a different way. But a contraction can also be formed from a verb as well as any other word. And if we use the contraction, which is, let's say, verb apostrophe and not, So we can form it with the word verb as well as not, which is a. And there we have an example, is not. It's like saying isn't because we remove the O within that sentence. Right? All right. So now we're going to, if we look at the word, let's say can, like is not, right? We already said that the word, the O we leave out, and the O is also like in a different color. So we leave that out and we put an apostrophe in its place. And if we write down the words before the example, the changes, let's put it like that, then we can say is not, is not. That, of course, is isn't. So we break down. All right. So now let's go to our test, right? Remember any other word that you leave out, right? You need to put an apostrophe in its place. So if we look at the first one, it says Mrs. Lawson loves horses. So we now need to say Mrs. Lawson, right? So she's buying a ranch or ranch. And remember, we said yeah, a contraction is a shortened form of a word. And we first started by saying that it is a contraction is formed from pronoun as well as verb, where the pronoun stays the same and we change the verb or we shorten the verb. And then we also have the contractions let's say shows or that is shortened from two words is a contraction with the verb and the philander. With the verb, sorry, and the word not. I'm reading a different word here. So the verb as well as the word not. So which means that we are actually saying that the verb is not going to change. The only word that is going to change is where we leave out the O in in not, and then we continue shortening that two words to become one. Right? All right, now let's go to our test. So we're going to begin our test. So we're going to have to choose the correct contraction. All right. So now we're going to have to complete the sentence with the best contraction. So we need to be saying that test. All right. So now it says that test. We can say it either has not too hard or wasn't too hard. So if we choose the correct one, we can say that test wasn't too bad, meaning that it was not too bad or too hard, right? Meaning that it was manageable and maybe you enjoyed it. So we can say that test wasn't, which means was not too hard, and wasn't is correct. It's like saying was not. So when do we say when isn't or when we're in the country, we love taking long walks. So when do we say when isn't in the country or when we're in the country, we love taking long walks? So we are saying when we're, which is were not, were we are, sorry, we are. When we're in the country, we love taking long walks. So we're, which is we as well as are. And we're is correct. So we need to complete the sentence with the base contraction. Sadly, we need to either choose sadly you supposed to rain all next week or sadly it's supposed to rain all of next week. So sadly, we will say it's, meaning it is supposed to rain all of next week. It's, which is it is. All right, so now we're going to use contractions within a sentence. So sadly, we're saying it's supposed to rain all of next week. So we say it's supposed to rain. So sadly, we say it's supposed to rain all of next week. So we say sadly, it's supposed to rain all of next week. It's. And then, so our correct answer is it's. So it's, which is it is, right? Then we say Colin thinks. Do we say I'm win the race tomorrow? Or Colin thinks he'll win the race tomorrow? And he'll, it stands for he will. I'm stands for I am. So now they want to know Colin thinks. Do we say I'm win the race tomorrow? Or Colin thinks he'll win the race tomorrow? And we can say Collins thinks that he, meaning he will win the race tomorrow. So well done. He'll is correct. And then we found fireflies in the backyard. And do we say isn't flashing or and they're flashing? So we can say we found fireflies in the backyard. And do we say and isn't flashing, meaning is not flashing? Or do we say we found fireflies in the backyard and they are flashing, meaning they are flashing? So we can say we found fireflies in the backyard and they are flashing, meaning they are flashing. And there is correct. All right. So that is basically our contractions, right? Where we say that we basically could create contractions from let's say two words, right? And then we need to shorten that two words by forming one word. And remember, we need to have the apostrophe ready. And an contraction is a shortened form of two words, and we can either use pronoun verb contractions, where the pronoun, for example, stays the same, but the verb changes, or we can have verb as well as not contractions, where the verb stays the same, but not, we basically change that, right? All right, so that is now the end of our lesson on contractions. So thank you very much, grade twos, for joining our class, and I really hope you're going to have a good day further. Goodbye.